Roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Present.
Present. Counsel Capano?
Present.
Present. Counsel Chakutis? Present. Counsel Calucci, absent. Counsel Seer?
Present.
Present. Counsel Field?
Present.
Present. Counsel LaPierre?
Present.
Present. Counsel Lozey?
Present.
Present. Counsel Net?
Present.
Present. Counsel Starbird?
Present.
Present. Counsel Walsh?
Present.
Present.
All rise for a moment of silence.
Mr. President, can we have a special moment of silence for the Denny McManus and the McManus family, please?
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Communications? I'm sorry. Accept the, a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting, September 25th. Motion made.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Communications?
You have no communications.
Okay, before we get started, I'm gonna ask the CFO, Mike Latino, to come up to the podium. Mike came to me last week, and he made a request that the council has to take a vote, so I asked him to come to explain what that request was. I asked the mayor if he wanted to stay. He was here a second ago, so I don't know if he's still here, but, Mike, the podium is yours. In case those haven't met him yet, this is our new CFO. Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Council President. Again, Michael Bertino, the Chief Financial Officer of the city. A couple of items. The first item is, when I came to the city on September 10th, one of the first tasks I encountered was to review the fiscal year 2019 budget. As part of the bailout, the city had to enter all the information into the gateway system so it could be reviewed by the state. And they had approximately 10 days to do that, which they did. So when I came in 2 months later in September, I reviewed that information, and there's several items that changed. One of them at the time, so everybody is aware that a budget is really estimated revenues and estimated expenditures for the year. And not until does the year finish do you actually know your results. So the governor signed the budget in late July. So I went through the information, and some of the numbers that the state was giving us increased, some to the good, some to the not so good. Is this loud? This sounds very loud. No? Okay.
Anybody have an issue?
Okay, so again, I reviewed the revenues, and at one time, they gave us approximately $600,000 in state aid, an increase. And then with that increase in state aid, the state draws back money. And this is known as charges that they draw back. And those are things like the MBTA, school choice tuitions, charter school tuitions. So the numbers that we used were good numbers over the summer, were approximately $1.3 million less than the final numbers. So we did receive an additional $600,000 in state aid, yet the money that the state takes back from us for charter school tuition, school choice tuition, MBTA charges and stuff, also increased by approximately $1.3 million. Additionally, the final number for the healthcare trust was budgeted at a $400,000 deficit, and when we got those final numbers in September, the deficit turned out to be just over $800,000. So like any other deficit, we need to raise that. So what it means to raise it, it means you actually have to appropriate the money to bring that account to zero. So the reason we didn't know that number, because what you have when you're self-insured, you have charges that are incurred through the month of June that we haven't received the bill yet. So sometimes it takes 15, 30, 45 days to receive the bill. So we get those bills late July, early August, and we receive an invoice from our carrier, and we pay that invoice. So that's the result of going from negative 400,000 to negative 800,000. It's invoices that have been incurred, but we haven't received yet. So they originally budgeted 400,000, but that was through 10 and a half months. So in the last month and a half, we incurred an additional 400,000. So when you put these numbers together, you're about 1.7 million negative. Then you factor in the $600,000 more in state aid that we received. It puts us just under 1.1 million that we need to make up. So noting back in the spring, we got 9.5 million from the $14 million bailout. The original $4 million was already in the budget projections for fiscal year 2019. So one of my recommendations is going to be to increase that $4 million authorization to 4.5, an extra 500,000. We've only authorized 9.5 million as of today, so the new vote will be advertised later this week and presented to the council on October 23rd, and that will be for the full remaining 4.5. The other $500,000 deficit, our plan is to use what we call lag money. So if we budgeted for a full year of a position and we know that the position hasn't been hired in the first quarter, 25% of the year, we'll recommend reducing that line item by 25%. So by doing these several items, the budget will be back in balance. Just to take a step back for a second, and I know this is a lot I'm throwing at you, but the reality is when you prepare a budget, it's all based on estimates. You know, we can't estimate what we're going to get for state aid until the governor signs the budget, and that wasn't until late July. So some of these things you can use good estimates, what I call, but when your budget is as tight as the city's is, and we know the city's budget's been tight for a number of years because of the pending financial issues we've had, there's no reserves to back up with. So that's why we have to be very careful in setting our budget, is we know about a deficit, even though it's a less than it's 1/3 of 1% we're talking about. That's a small number, but to the city, it's a big number because of the financial position we're in. And just to reiterate, the position that we're in wasn't caused overnight, it was caused over time. So it's going to take more meetings like this and more communication like this to relay the message and let everybody know. I can tell you, you know, if we turn the clock back 5 or 10 years, finding a 0.5% on a $280 million budget shouldn't be a big deal. The reason why we're bringing it up now is we have all these different requirements that were put in effect with the, you know, the acts of 2018. So that's why we're in constant communication with our fiscal stability officer, and that's why I thought it was important to bring everybody up to speed on this situation.
Council Lozey, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mike, thanks for that synopsis. Question, this will rectify fiscal years 2018, 2019. What do you foresee in fiscal year 2020, beginning this coming July?
I think everybody knows that this is going to be our biggest challenge. Whenever you use one-time revenue to patch a budget hole, it gets difficult. So last year in 18, we used 9.5 million in one-time revenue. This year, we're using 4.5 million in one-time revenue. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's going to take a lot of meetings, a lot of cooperation. We're probably going to look at some concessions. You know, I think it's important to keep everybody employed, to keep the city moving forward. So it's going to take a lot of work, and we expect to kick off this work with the new budget in the next week or so.
Is there any way to project how much the potential shortfall will be in 2020?
Absolutely. There's ways to project it. We just all have to sit around and agree on a set of assumptions. And once we have a set of assumptions, we can then project what we're looking at. You know, we'll have to look at the pension. How's the pension doing? We'll have to look at, you know, labor relations, how our contracts are faring. We'll have to look at new development. Are we on target, or are we just going to have more of the same average?
And that's all well and fine, but what about, Mike, what about figuring out a solution to the problem? Are you confident that when we go into 2020, that you'll have a balanced budget strategy at that time? Well, before it, we don't want surprises like we have been surprised the last year or two. And we want to avoid that. And I guess my question is, if you see it coming, you know, what will the strategy be?
We can always see it coming. We know it's 4.5 million plus normal, you know, increases. We do have a strategy. You know, we'll work with the council and the mayor and all the department heads to try to implement that strategy. I'm confident, but I'm not going to, you know, make, you know, thousands of promises, but we do have a strategy. We know where the issues are, and we're comfortable about moving forward. It's going to take work on everybody's part. No one person or one department can fix this. It's going to be a collaborative effort, and everyone's going to have to be involved. But I do believe it can be fixed sooner than later, but with concessions.
Thank you, Mike.
Councilor Barton.
Mr. President, this question is to you. If we're going to have these meetings on discussing the budget, borrowing money or whatever, then I think that Sean Cronin should be at these meetings because he's overseeing, you know, our finances. So next time we have a meeting like this, I hope he's here.
Is that in the form of a motion, or
Make that a motion.
motion made, seconded, to ask Sean Cronin to come to our next meeting on the 23rd?
Yes. I don't think we should be making any decisions on giving money away without him here.
So the motion's made, been seconded, any discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Staben?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Staben.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, Mike. So the 4.5 million that you're looking at tonight, this is the balance of the 14 million that was voted on with the home rule petition earlier in the year?
That's correct. It's the same money, it just only 9.5 was authorized.
So that puts us at the max, because that was 12 million, unless the Director of Accounts, who was Sean Cronin, correct?
Correct.
The way that was written, shall not exceed 12 million unless the Director of Accounts finds that an additional 2 million is necessary for the city to achieve a balanced budget in FY 18 and 19. My concern is that we max this out, that's to close the hole for the current year. And I think before I could vote on that, I'd like to know what some of the ways that we're going to achieve being able to get to a balanced budget without having borrowing capabilities for next year. Because this, I think is a short-term solution that's going to put us further in the hole. But I'd like to know what the plan is going forward, how we're going to be able to achieve a balanced budget for next year without having the ability to borrow to do that. And I remember when we voted on the budget earlier in the year, and Sean Cronin was here, he said, this is going to be easy. Your challenge is going to be next year when you don't have the ability to borrow. So before we go deeper in the hole, I'd like to know what the plan's going to be going forward into future years, how we're going to be able to balance the budget without borrowing money.
Okay, just first and foremost, to answer the question about Sean Cronin, I have been working with Sean for the last 4 weeks on this issue. It's just until we finalized it and I got his approval and we verified the numbers, could I have time to then bring it before the council? And I think that once we work out a method to communicate and for me to relay information, you'll be pleasantly surprised, how much of a handle we have on the situation. Yes, Sean is exactly right. $4.5 million, this is easy. That's why we're not making the recommendations to cut any budgets. We're looking at lag money, which is money that's already past its useful life that we can easily claw back. As I said before, we're going to need concessions. It took 10 years to get into this problem. It's going to take a few years for us to get out. And we have a bunch of ideas, and there's a bunch of committees working on it, but I'll be happy to share some of the projections and other items that we're looking at to close this gap and move the city forward. So, yes, there is a plan. I just don't think we have a vehicle or a method which to communicate effectively with each other, but I'm here willing and able to let you know some of the plans that we have and some of the projections that we've put together to date.
I just think that those are things that this body would like to see before, and I don't mean to speak for everybody, but before we're confident in going back to the well.
Point taken, and again, as soon as if we can establish a vehicle, I'll be happy to meet later this week or next week in preparation of the advertising and possible vote on the 23rd. There's also another number that we're looking at on the 23rd is we're requesting to borrow $2.35 million for street light improvements. And this is basically taking the old sodium lights, Cobra heads, and converting them to LED. It's been in the works for quite some time. It has to be completed by March 31st, 2019 for the city to recognize approximately $1.1 million in incentives and rebates. So it'll have a very short payback period. We're just getting used to some of the requirements that not only do we have to go before the council, but we have to run this by Sean at the DOR. So we've done that. Now the next step is to present it to the council. And then after that, and Sean agrees, we have to go to the Massachusetts, Fiscal Oversight Board to get their approval as well. But it's a very short payback period. And these are some of the things that we plan on doing to close the budget gap in the future years.
If I might add just to that lighting, it would be a cost saving over the years, correct?
That's correct.
So, and this is something that I think Council Lozey started maybe 4 years ago, and it's finally gotten to the point where we're able to do something about that. Council Lozey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, over time, it will pay for itself because much of the initial capital will be reimbursed in the form of a grant. I think you said that was $1.1 million, and then the annual savings from the LED over, I don't know how many years, we'll pay it back as well. I just want to elaborate on Councilor Starboard's point, and, you know, your point that there's not a vehicle for communicating this, and I think I feel what Councilor Starboard is saying, that I think we'd like to see specifics, possibly alternatives, the strategies I was asking you earlier. If you could maybe put something in concrete, like tell us, if we do this, then we're gonna be facing this next year, and we can do X, Y, and Z, and it will remedy that. But, you know, and none of it's gonna be easy. It's gonna be biting the bullet and tolerating how much pain is what I would imagine. Anytime you're faced with a difficult budgetary issue, you've got to say no. And I think, you know, Mike, I've told you, your job consists of, you have to say no. And you can't be yes to everything. So I guess if there, you know, maybe the vehicle could be meeting with you separately to get feedback, but I would love to hear some strategies, alternatives, well ahead of time. I'm a planner. My finances are always, my personal finances, I like to keep ahead of it. I don't like to owe money. I want it taken care of. And I take that philosophy here to the city. And I don't want to see us borrowing and being in trouble down the road. So, you know, and you're new, and you're certainly, you've only been here a month. But we've been frustrated with this for a good almost 2 years now. And we're not getting the answers that to the questions we're asking to ensure that things are gonna go smoothly. And so that's what we're looking for. If that isn't too vague, I'd love to hear your strategies and your alternatives that we can avoid coming into 2020, how we're gonna make up this shortfall.
Yeah, thank you. I just also be aware that a lot of the items I'm talking about have to be bargained. So I can't just come out here and elaborate on everything until I meet with our Labor Council. You know, I can't talk about it in open session and things like that. So just because I have strategies doesn't mean I'm going to be successful at them. But I have to be aware that, you know, we're in active negotiations, and that any item I talk about could be construed as a possible unfair labor practice. So I want to at least talk to Labor Council, but as far as information moving forward, I'll be happy to discuss it, just not in this forum until such time I speak to council.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, and I hope that's not the only strategy that we're relying on, you know, contractual bargaining for making up that. I'm sure there's other areas where we can, I hate to say it, we're gonna have to cut. There are gonna have to be cuts made, difficult cuts, and, you know, I'd like to hear that, and if there are gonna be choices, you know, where we can say, well, we'll cut this, we'd rather see that than this, or maybe we could choose this alternative rather than that one, and not be presented at the last minute, you know, going into the spring before the fiscal year that, you know, this is what's gonna happen.
Okay, point taken. I'll prepare something and make it available.
Thank you, Mike.
Could you also prepare something to let us know what, if we don't pass this 4.5 million, what the consequences would be, whether it be through layoffs or what other city services may be lost if we don't do that?
Absolutely, but I was under the impression that everybody is aware that at least 4 million of those funds were discussed and elaborated on, you know, during the budget process. So what I'm just talking about is that delta of 500,000, but I can tell you what 4.5 million will do when it's cut, 4 months into the year. I can also elaborate on that.
Council Barton.
Mike, this 4.5, how's that gonna affect the taxpayers?
Right now, $4.5 million would be roughly $500,000 a year we would have to pay back, because deficit financing for operational needs can only be borrowed on an annual basis. So we borrow $4.5 million for 1 year. When the 365 days comes up, we have to pay down principal, which is 10 divided by 450. So we'd have to make that payment along with whatever accumulated interest. It would be relatively negligible when you look at, tax bills totaling $110 million, although there is an effect on it. And just like there's an effect this year with the 9.5 million that's due, March 2019.
I think, the taxpayers had enough, I don't see going to the taxpayers asking them for any more money.
Are there any other questions for Mike? I just want to, Council LaPierre.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mike, I get the original 9 plus, right? And now this is the 4.5. We thought we would need this 4 at some point in time during FY19 that we're in. We also put in the trash fee to make up the difference, some of the difference, $2 million to pay back that loan. So there's, like my councilor colleague Barton was saying, what's the idea around some stopgap, small revenues to satisfy this $500,000 extra if we go along with the 4.5? Because we're borrowing, we have a line of credit, but we didn't use the whole line yet. Is that appropriate to say that? Now we're actually bonding for that 4. Instead of 4, you're asking 4.5. So how do we make up the 500,000 in new revenue to offset the tax base?
Whether it's a fee or a tax, it has to be paid. I would much rather look at it from an expenditure point of view. So I'm not recommending any new tax or fee. I'm looking at it as cutting 500,000 out of the budget because we've already passed the first quarter of the budget. It's a little too soon to start looking at revenues, because if you don't pass this 4 million that was stated, they won't set the tax rate, because it says right in the legislation, you have to borrow it before you can use it. So last year, we didn't have our tax rate set, so you had to borrow 9.5 million. They will not set the tax rate this year until we at least borrow the 4 million we told them over the summer.
This is DOR you're talking about.
DOR. They will not, it's written right in. It has to be borrowed before we set the tax rate. So our plan would be go to market sometime in late November. And then once we go to market, we'll be able to set the tax rate, assuming we will meet the other criteria they lied out for us. So we don't have the option of drawing this down in February if we think we need it. So when you're talking about a $320 million budget, I know it's a lot of money. If it was 500,000 on the floor, we'd all probably scramble for it. But it's 500,000 to help balance a budget and then start working together as a unit in getting us out of this situation, because it hasn't happened overnight and it's going to take time. And the cuts are no problem. Just sometimes we have to, look at everything. Nothing can be off the table. We have net school spending we have to meet. The state gives us $170 million. If we don't spend that money where it's supposed to, they're going to take it away from us like they did before.
And just to follow up, are we credit worthy to borrow, like when we bond it? What's our rating? How is that going to be structured?
The way we borrow right now is they're we borrow under the state's credit rating. That's why we go to the Municipal Financial Oversight Board. So by us doing that, they take our debt payments right out of our state aid. So because they do that, we're at a much higher rating. It's guaranteed through our Chapter 70 money. So they're going to get paid, so therefore we're borrowing, I think the last borrowing we did was roughly, the composite rate was around 2.45.
Any other questions? Thanks, Mike. I just want to say real quickly that I like some of the things that I'm hearing tonight from our CFO. I want to point out that the mayor's here with people from his staff, that a year ago or a year and a half ago, Council Barton, Vice President Barton, and myself sat down weekly with the mayor and with CFO and the city treasurer, as well as someone from the law department, and to discuss the budget. And I'm going to extend to the mayor that invitation again. He has said to me and Vice President Barton that he would love to sit down and start having either weekly or bi-weekly meetings. But I think this is such an important issue in the city, especially when we're talking about possibility of layoffs and other cuts in the city, that not just for this fiscal year that we can get through, but also for fiscal year 20. I was going to ask to have the mayor come in 2 weeks, a request by the council, but I don't have to do that because I think the CFO answered a lot of the questions. But I know just from working with him in the past that he would love to do that. And like I said, I'm asking that we continue those meetings and we begin them within the next week or two. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Public hearings.
We have the petition of Paul Barasso, 23 Belgrade Street, Revere, Mass., owner of Fast Glass Service, Inc., to add a second floor for owner-occupied living space to an existing warehouse-only building located at 53 Ocean Street.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, that part of the hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, that part of the hearing is closed. I'm going to ask Vice President and Council Partner to take the vote.
That part of the hearing is closed. Councilor Seer.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'd like to make a motion that we table this public hearing.
Second.
Motion made to table, second. Roll call, please.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Starbed?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Any other public hearings?
No,
Any public hearings to be set now?
nothing to be set down.
Committees. Trash and litter. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a litter trash subcommittee today for further discussion as far as the concerns about the litter problem within the community. Different ideas passed around, no votes were taken. That completed our committee.
So, motion to
Motion
accept the
to
minutes?
accept the report.
Second. Thank you, Councilor Field. Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes got it. Personnel Committee, Councilor LaPierre.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Personnel Subcommittee met this evening. We interviewed Mr. James Wheelock for the third Assistant City Solicitor position. No action taken this evening.
So motion made
Motion to
to accept
accept.
the minutes.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Public properties,
Thank you, Mr.
Councilor
President.
Staben.
Thank you, Mr. President. 4 items. Redemption of city-owned property at 61 Nahant Street. Authorize the librarian to donate non-usable books to nonprofits. Approved Global Embassy Activists for Peace permission to use the Johnson Street lot for a blood drive. And approved the lease for city-owned property on the Linway for construction project at the General Edwards Bridge. Unanimous vote of the committee on all 4. in the form of a
Motion made, unanimous vote of the committee. Motion made, seconded. All those in favor? Ways and Means, would the city clerk please read?
Ordinance and rules. You gotta do ordinance and rules.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we already did. Okay, ordinance meeting, Councilor Lozey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. There was 2 public hearings, and the one regarding an ordinance establishing a revolving fund for the City of Lynn Public Arts Commission. That was passed unanimously. And there was another public hearing. I don't know if you want to take them separately, or,
You can do them both if you want to do a motion.
well, actually, it'd probably be more appropriate to do them individually.
Okay, yeah, we do have to take them separately, I'm sorry.
All right, so the first item, we had a public hearing, as I described, for the revolving fund for the Public Arts Commission, and it was passed unanimously in the ordinance committee, so I would make a motion that we approve here in the full council.
Motion made,
Second
seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Before we go any further, I just want to say that Councilor Calucci is not with us tonight, but he's here in spirit because he's texted me 73 times since I've been here at the podium tonight. He's been called away on business out of state, so he'll be here at our next council meeting. Continue, Councilor Lozey.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. The second public hearing was an ordinance amending the current ordinance regulating the maintenance of abandoned properties, that it would extend to commercial properties as well as residential, and that was passed unanimously. So I would make a motion that we approve this amendment on that existing ordinance.
Motion made,
Second.
seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Calucci absent, Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Lozey? Yes, Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Staben?
Yes.
Yes, Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Yes.
Ways and Means, would the city clerk please read all the transfers that were accepted?
Mr. President, yes,
Counselor.
we had 7 items tonight, and 6 were approved by the committee, and 1 was denied.
Was denied.
Make a motion to approve that.
Okay, would the clerk please read the ones that were approved? We'll
Okay,
vote
these
on
are-
those first.
Be approved. Order that the city clerk be directed to cause notice that the early voting for the November 6, 2018 state election will begin on Monday, October 22nd, 2018, during regular City Hall business hours, and will end on Friday, November 2nd, 2018. Early voting will take place outside the election office, room 203, and into the rear of the auditorium. The meeting of all qualified voters of the City of Lynn will be held in several polling places designated for the state election on November 6, 2018. Polls will open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. Transfer the sum of $2,250 from the account of reserve expense to the account of the comptroller expense to fund unpaid bills of prior year for the FY17 audit. Transfer the sum of $28,121.81 from the account of streetlight expense to the account of streetlight bill of prior year. This is for unpaid invoices in the FY18 for various work performed on streetlight boxes being damaged by uninsured vehicles. Transfer the sum of $11,707.48 from the account of ISD expense to the account of ISD bills of prior year for unpaid invoices in FY18 for various work performed and invoices not received timely. Transfer the sum of $1,145 from the account of care of dogs expense to the account of care of dogs bill of prior year for unpaid invoices in FY18 and invoices not received timely. And the final one approved is certify as an available fund the amount of $149,764 as allotted to the City of Lynn School Department by the Department of Public Health for the Essential School Health Grant.
Motion made to approve,
Second.
seconded, discussion, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Starbed?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Councilor Net, was there an emergency on the approval ones tonight?
Yes, there were emergency for all the approval. I make a
Motion made, seconded, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis? Yes. Counsel Calucci absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Starbed?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and
Councilor Net, I understand there was a motion to deny one of the transfers tonight.
Yeah, there was one denied by the committee, and like
Motion to
Madam
approve the
Clerk.
denial,
Second.
seconded, discussion, roll call.
You want me to read it or not?
Mr. President, what was the denial for?
To read it?
Please read it.
Okay. The denial was to transfer the sum of $35,000 from the account of personnel payroll to the account of personnel expense. This transfer of funds is to cover the cost of an interim personnel director vacated due to retirement.
Motion made, seconded, roll call.
Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes to deny. Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci, absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Starbed?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Yes.
Utilities Committee, let's see if I get it right tonight. Councilor Walsh.
Wow, all right, cool. We had one utility pole that had to be approved to removed for a subdivision for Walnut Street. It was a unanimous vote of the committee, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made, seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? If I may ask the chairman of the Utilities Committee, back in June, we had all the utilities come in regards to the pole situation. Any idea how we're doing?
I think it's gotten a little bit better, but we still have a long way to go.
Should we send a request from the council asking them, what the situation is, how they're,
Yeah, I think it
For
would
an
be appropriate to ask for an update.
I'm asking. That's a motion from the chair.
Second.
Seconded. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good. License Committee, Councilor Walsh.
Unanimous vote of the committee, motion to approve.
Motion made.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Committee of the Whole, which would, I guess, be me. So you guys witnessed what went on tonight. Asking that we accept the minutes of that meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Old business, Councilor Jacutis.
Yeah, request of you, the amended hours on ironbound food trucks. We're gonna do 7 days a week, and we're gonna do 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 7 days through the winter months. Then spring, you can come back and do extended hours on the weekends. Motion to approve.
Motion to
Second.
approve, seconded. Do we need a roll call?
Yep. Counsel Barton?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Capano?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Chakutis?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Calucci, absent. Counsel Seer?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Field?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel LaPierre?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Lozey?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Net?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Starbed?
Yes.
Yes. Counsel Walsh?
Yes.
Yes.
Any new business?
New business.
Council Lapierre.
I just want to wish my 8-year-old son a happy birthday today. It's his real birthday, and his name is Dylan, and he might be watching this on television. So although I missed dinner with Dylan, I'm going to have dessert with him in about 10 minutes, Mr. President.
So is that in the form of a motion, Counselor?
That would be a form of a motion under new business. Happy birthday, Dylan.
So, happy birthday, Dylan.
Happy birthday, Dylan.
Any other business? It's the wish of the committee.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Go Red Sox.
Red Sox, 1-0.
Are they up 1-0?
Third inning.
We got the updates.
He drilled right in the